Bom dia, Year 2, and I hope that is good morning in Portuguese. Now, it says here, these are easy. Though sometimes when people have tests, the ones that are the easiest manage to trick people and they write some really silly answers. So one side are all times 0 and the other side are all times 1. So I want you to think about what happens when you're timesing something by 0. Remember, times means lots of or sets of. So if you've got 2 lots of 0, what have you got? You've got 0. You've got nothing. Even if you've got 70 lots of 0, it's still going to be nothing. And it doesn't matter which way round it's written. So even if we had the 0 the other side, so let's have 0 times 10, that means you've got no sets of 10. You've got no 10s, so you've got nothing. So that side's very easy, but I do want you to write them into your book to practice writing them. Now the next side is all times 1. So if you've got 1 lot of 27 or 27 ones, you're just going to have 27. It's going to be the same as the first number. If you've got 9 times 1, you've got 9 ones, or you've got 1 9. So it's just going to be 9. So I want you to write those neatly in your book and remember the rule. It doesn't matter which side the times 1 is or which side the times 0 is. These ones will always be 0 and these ones will always be the same as the other number. What about if you had 1 times 1? What would that be then? So write those neatly in your book. Can I order fractions on a number line? Now to start with, we're just going to look at some pictures of fractions, and I want you to just use your eyes to try and work out which has got the biggest bit and which is the smallest bit without even worrying about what fractions they are. So if that was bits of pizza, that quarter, I can see that's a quarter, is quite small. Now these two are really difficult because they almost look the same, but this one I think is a bit less. I'm going to put that one next, then that one, and then that one is quite a lot. And if I was going to label them, the first one was definitely a quarter because that's 1 out of 4. And the next one is actually a third, so a third was bigger than a quarter, wasn't it? Now this one is almost the same as a third. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 bits altogether and 3 are coloured in, so that's 3/8. And the biggest one, 3, 4, 5 and 4 are coloured in, so that's 4/5. So if you look at the numbers, that makes no sense at all. But looking at the pictures, you can actually use your eyes to see which one has got the most. Now this is going to be easier because the fractions are all going to be thirds. So I'm going to try and order them from 0 to 3/3. And to do that, I'm going to have to colour them in. So 3/3 is all of them. And 3/3 is exactly the same as 1 whole. Terrible colouring in. So that's 3/3. So this one needs to be 2/3. And then we can have 1/3. What a mess. And then the last one can be 0/3. So let's write the labels. So that's 0/3, that's 1/3, and that's 2/3. Now some of these are equivalent because remember 3/3 is just the same as 1 and 0/3 is the same as 0. Let's have a go now with quarters. So we're going to have 0 there and we want 1 down there. Let's change to another colour. I don't think it's going to make the colouring in any better there. Let's try blue. So the first one's going to be 0 quarters. The next one we want 1 quarter. And after that we're going to have 2 quarters. And then after that we need 3 quarters. Oh, I'm not going to have room, am I? I can't have a 0 quarter. I haven't got enough. I'm going to have to go backwards and change what I'm doing. So that one's going to be 4 quarters. Let's make that 1 3/4. Make that 1 2/4. And then that one can be 1/4. So we can't start this number line at 0. I'm going to have to change that. Let's rub out the 0. So that is now 1/4. Then we've got 2/4. Then we've got 3/4. And last of all, 4/4, which is the same as 1. What's 2/4 the same as? If you look at the picture, it's the same as half. Now I've managed to squeeze in another circle. You can see a proper number line. So it's going to start with 0, this number line, and it's going to go all the way up to 1. Because remember, fractions are part of a whole, they're part of 1. So right in the middle would be half, because that would be half way between. And then this one is 1/4. This one is 3/4. And remember, half is the same as 2/4. And you could say 1 is the same as 4/4. And 0 is the same as no quarters. So that is showing you the pictures of the fractions on the number line. Now here we've got a number line. There's one picture, but the rest are just numbers. So we know that's 1/4, but where would it go? We've got 2/4, so that would go in the middle because that's half. So that must be 1/4, which can go with that one. And then that one there would be 3/4. Often in tests, when they have a number line with fractions, they don't actually start at 0 and go up to 1. They'll choose another number, like let's have 3 here and 4 here, and then ask you what goes in the middle. Now you know that's halfway between, and there's 3 there, so it would be 3 1/2. And so if we look at these two, let's choose a number for these. Let's say that starts on 7 and ends on 8. And let's say this one starts on 5 and ends on 6. So the numbers in the middle, this line's divided into quarters, that would be 7 1/4, 7 2/4 or 7 1/2, 7 3/4 until it gets to 8. So it's the number, the whole number and a little bit. So this one would be 5, then it's got 5 1/3 because it's divided into thirds, 5 2/3, and then it gets to 6. So those are quite tricky, and you just always need to remember that it doesn't get to the next number until the end. It's going to be the first number and the fraction. So this is the sheet that you need to find in your pack. It's got 2 number lines. Now the first one said halves. Remember, a half is written like that. And the next one is fourths, which is the same as quarters. So this one starts at 0 and ends at 1. And this one starts at 0 and ends at 1. So your job is to cut round the dotted lines first, so you've got a set of fractions. So now you've got to stick the fractions down onto the number line. So the half ones, the denominator is always going to be 2, and the fourths, it's going to be 4. So this one goes on the halves because it's got a 2 at the bottom and it's 0 out of 2. So that would go where 0 is. And then half, 1 out of 2, would go halfway across because remember it's going to be the same as it is on that one. And then 2 out of 2 is the same as 1. So don't completely cover up the one. In fact, you could stick them at the top. That would be more sensible. And then you can still see the 0 and still see the 1 because 2 halves, 2 tooths are the same as 1. So for the quarters, 4/4 or 4/4 will be the same as 1. And we've got 0, 1, 1/4. Then 2/4, and then 3/4. So you can see the equivalent ones are half and 2/4 mean exactly the same thing. 2 halves and 4/4 means exactly the same as a whole and the zeros are also the same. So you then need to stick those down neatly. And here's one final fraction challenge that you can have a think about before we come back to school, and we'll look at it again in school. So it's about a pattern of fractions. So if you look at this top one up here, it says half, 2/4, 3/6. So can you see a pattern? Look at the top numbers. They're going 1, 2, 3. And then the bottom numbers are going 2, 4, 6. How could you carry on that pattern? How far could you get? Then underneath, we've got another sort of pattern. You might recognise this from when we were folding the bits of paper. It starts with 1/2, then it's 1/4, then it's 1/8. Can you carry on that pattern? The top number in this one is staying the same. It just says 1, 1, 1. But the bottom numbers get very big very quickly, just like when you were folding the paper. So see if you can have a go at carrying on those patterns.